Most people think power is loud. They believe strong people shout, react fast, and show anger without fear. But this story is about a different kind of power, the power of emotional control. This is the story of Ethan. Ethan was not weak, but he reacted to everything. If someone criticized him, he felt angry. If someone ignored him, he felt hurt. If something went wrong, his emotions controlled his actions. Inside, Ethan felt like a storm. At work, one small comment could ruin his whole day. At home, one argument stayed in his mind for hours. Even when he was quiet, his thoughts were loud. People often said, "You are too sensitive. You think too much." Ethan smiled, but inside he felt tired. One day, something small happened, but it changed everything. During a meeting, a colleague openly blamed Ethan for a mistake he did not make. Everyone was watching. Ethan felt heat in his chest. His heart beat faster. Words rushed to his mouth. He wanted to defend himself. He wanted to argue. He wanted to prove he was right. But before he spoke, he noticed something. The colleague who blamed him was calm, cold, controlled, and Ethan realized something painful. The calmer person always looks stronger. That day, Ethan reacted emotionally. He spoke fast, explained too much, and raised his voice. Even though he was right, he looked unstable. After the meeting, Ethan felt ashamed. Not because of the mistake, but because he lost control of himself. That night, he asked himself a serious question. Why do my emotions control me? He understood something for the first time. Life was not exhausting because of problems. It was exhausting because of his reactions. This realization was uncomfortable, but powerful. Ethan didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning of a deep change. A journey into silence, into control, into real strength. The next few days, Ethan started observing himself. Not changing, not controlling, just watching. He noticed how fast his emotions appeared. A look, a word, a message, and his mind reacted before he could think. One morning, while checking his phone, Ethan read a short message from his manager. It was simple, but unclear. Normally, Ethan would feel nervous. He would imagine problems, criticism, danger. His emotions would start racing. But this time he paused. He put the phone down. He took a deep breath. He waited. 10 seconds felt long. His mind wanted to react. But Ethan stayed silent. And something strange happened. The emotion became weaker. Not gone, but softer. Ethan realized something important. Emotions are strong at the beginning, but weak if you don't feed them. Later that day, another test came. A colleague made a sarcastic comment about Ethan's work. People laughed quietly. Ethan felt the familiar fire rise again. His body prepared to react, but he remembered the pause. Instead of speaking, Ethan looked at the person calmly and said nothing. No defense, no anger, no explanation. The silence felt uncomfortable, but not for Ethan, for the other person. The colleague avoided eye contact. The laughter stopped. The moment passed. That night, Ethan felt something new, control. He understood that silence is not weakness. Silence is space, and space gives you power. By not reacting, Ethan kept his energy. He did not waste it on ego battles or emotional fights. For the first time, he slept peacefully. Ethan wrote one sentence in his notebook that night. Not every emotion deserves a reaction. This simple rule became his new practice. He was not calm yet. He was not wise yet. But he had taken the first step toward emotional intelligence. And the storm inside him began to slow down. Ethan did not become calm overnight. But one thing changed clearly. He stopped reacting immediately. At work, people started to notice something different about him. Before, Ethan was predictable. Now he was unreadable. When someone complained, he listened. When someone criticized, he stayed quiet. When someone tried to provoke him, he paused. At first, people were confused. They expected arguments. They expected excuses. They expected emotions. But Ethan gave them silence. Not cold silence, calm silence. One afternoon, during a discussion, a colleague tried to push Ethan into a defensive position again. "So, Ethan, do you agree this mistake was yours?" the colleague asked, with a smile that was not friendly. All eyes turned to Ethan. In the past, this moment would have triggered anxiety. His heart would race. His words would rush. This time, Ethan breathed slowly. He waited. Then he said calmly, "I understand your point. Let's look at the facts. No emotion, no tensión." The room changed. The conversation became professional, logical, clear. For the first time, Ethan saw how emotional control gives authority. People listened. Later that day, his manager spoke to him privately. "You handled that situation well," the manager said. "You stayed calm under pressure. That's leadership." That word stayed in Ethan's mind, leadership. He realized something powerful. People trust those who control themselves. Silence was no longer just protection. It was influence. At home, Ethan practiced the same control. During arguments, he listened more than he spoke. He stopped trying to win every conversation. And strangely, conflicts became shorter. Ethan learned a deep lesson. You don't need to prove your strength. People feel it when you're calm. He was not dominating others. He was mastering himself. And this quiet power started changing how the world responded to him. Ethan soon discovered an uncomfortable truth. Controlling emotions at work was difficult, but controlling emotions with people you love was much harder. One evening, Ethan had an argument with someone close to him. Old patterns returned quickly. Accusations, raised voices, emotional tension filled the room. Ethan felt the familiar urge to react. His chest tightened. His thoughts became sharp. His ego wanted to win. This time, the silence felt dangerous. If I stay quiet, I will look weak. If I don't respond, they will think I agree. Ethan almost reacted, but then he remembered something important. Silence is not surrender. Silence is control. He took a breath and said calmly, "I hear you. Let's talk when we are both calmer." The words felt heavy but honest. The argument stopped, not because it was solved, but because it was paused. Later that night, Ethan reflected deeply. Why was it so hard to stay calm with close people? Because emotions are stronger where attachment is stronger. Ethan realized another truth. Most conflicts are not about problems. They are about uncontrolled emotions. The next day, the conversation continued calmly, without shouting, without blame, with understanding. Something changed. The other person listened more. Defensiveness disappeared. Solutions appeared naturally. Ethan understood that emotional control builds respect, even in relationships. He learned that reacting emotionally might feel honest, but it often damages connection. Control, on the other hand, creates safety. That night, Ethan wrote another rule in his notebook. Control your emotions, or they will control your relationships. This lesson was painful, but powerful, and it prepared Ethan for the deeper transformation ahead. Ethan understood something important. Emotional control was not a switch. It was a skill, and like any skill, it needed practice. So Ethan decided to train his inner silence. Every morning, he woke up 10 minutes earlier. He sat quietly, without his phone, without music, without distraction. At first, his mind was loud. Thoughts came fast. Worries appeared. Old arguments replayed. Ethan did not fight them. He watched them. He noticed how emotions rise, stay for a moment, and then slowly fade. This was a powerful discovery. He realized, you don't have to stop thoughts. You only have to stop obeying them. During the day, Ethan practiced awareness. When anger appeared, he named it. When fear appeared, he noticed it. When ego appeared, he smiled at it. He stopped identifying himself with emotions. Instead of saying, "I am angry," he thought, "Anger is passing through me." This small change created distance, and distance created control. At work, stressful moments still happened, but they no longer controlled his mood for hours. At home, emotional tension passed faster. Ethan felt lighter. He also noticed something else. The calmer he became, the more others revealed themselves. Some people became uncomfortable. Some became respectful. Some lost power over him. He understood a deep truth. When you control your emotions, manipulators lose interest. That night, Ethan wrote another sentence. Inner silence is louder than emotional reactions. This was no longer theory. It was experience. Ethan was building something strong inside, invisible but unbreakable. And soon, life would test it again. As Ethan became calmer, something interesting happened. People started testing him. Not openly, not clearly, but intentionally. At work, a colleague began making small, sharp comments. Not insults, just enough to provoke a reaction. In the past, Ethan would have reacted instantly. This time, he noticed a pattern. The colleague wanted a reaction. Emotion. Control. Ethan stayed calm. When the comment came, Ethan looked at him briefly and continued his work. No explanation. No defense. The silence was powerful. The colleague tried again later. A louder comment. A joke at Ethan's expense. Ethan smiled slightly and said nothing. People around them felt the tension. But something unexpected happened. The provocation failed. Without emotional response, the words lost power. Ethan understood an important psychological truth. People provoke to feel important. Silence removes their reward. Later that day, the same colleague acted normal, even respectful. Ethan realized that emotional control is not just self-defense. It is dominance without aggression. At home, the same lesson appeared. Someone tried to pull Ethan into an old argument. The topic was familiar. The emotions were ready. Ethan listened. He stayed present. He did not interrupt. When the person finished speaking, Ethan calmly said, "I understand how you feel." Nothing more. The argument ended before it started. That night, Ethan felt strong, not because he won, but because he did not lose himself. He wrote one more line in his notebook. Not reacting is choosing power over ego. By now, Ethan was no longer controlled by every emotion. He was learning when to speak and when silence was smarter. But one final lesson remained, the deepest one. Ethan had learned the power of silence. But silence alone was not wisdom. True emotional intelligence is knowing when not to react and when to speak. One day, Ethan faced a situation where silence was not the answer. During an important meeting, a wrong decision was being made. Everyone stayed quiet, not because they agreed, but because they were afraid. Ethan felt the familiar calm inside him. No anger, no fear, just clarity. This time, staying silent would mean avoiding responsibility. So Ethan spoke, not emotionally, not aggressively, not loudly. He spoke clearly and respectfully. "I see a risk here," he said. "Can we review this part again?" The room became quiet. People listened. The decision changed. Later, his manager thanked him. "You spoke at the right time," he said. That's rare. Ethan understood the final layer of emotional control. Silence gives you control. Control gives you clarity. Clarity tells you when to act. He was no longer quiet because of fear. He was quiet because he chose to be. At home, Ethan applied the same rule. He stopped avoiding difficult conversations. He waited until emotions were calm, then spoke honestly. The results were powerful. Less drama, more understanding, deeper respect. Ethan realized that emotional intelligence is balance. Reacting to everything is weakness. Never speaking is also weakness. Power lives in the middle. That night, Ethan closed his notebook and wrote one final principle. Control first. Speak second. He felt complete, but life had one more test. One evening, Ethan met someone he had not seen in years. His old friend, Mark. Mark was loud, impatient, always emotional, just like Ethan used to be. They sat in a small cafe. Mark complained about work, people life. His voice was sharp. His hands moved fast. Ethan listened. Not to reply, not to correct, just to understand. Mark suddenly stopped and said, "Why are you so quiet now? You changed." Ethan smiled. "I didn't change," he said calmly. "I learned." Mark laughed. "Being quiet won't make you powerful," he said. Ethan did not argue. He remembered how he used to think the same way. Mark continued talking, getting more frustrated. The more he spoke, the more tired he became. Then he asked, "How do you stay so calm?" Ethan answered simply, "I stopped fighting everything." Silence filled the table. For the first time, Mark listened. Ethan realized something important. You cannot save people by force. You can only show them by example. Later that night, Ethan thought about his past. The anger, the need to prove himself, the constant noise inside his mind. He felt gratitude, not for success, but for control. Meeting his old self showed him how far he had come. Power was no longer about winning arguments. It was about inner peace. And inner peace was the strongest power of all. But the biggest challenge was still coming. A few weeks later, Ethan faced his hardest test. At work, a serious mistake happened. The team was under pressure. Everyone was stressed. Some people blamed Ethan. In the past, he would have reacted immediately. He would have raised his voice. He would have defended himself with anger. But this time he paused. He felt the emotion rising inside him. Fear, anger, injustice. He did not push it away. He did not let it control him. He breathed slowly. Then he spoke. Not loudly, not emotionally, just clearly. He explained the situation. He took responsibility for his part. He suggested a solution. The room became quiet. People expected excuses. They expected conflict. Instead, they saw calm leadership. Later, his manager called him privately. "I watched you today," she said. "You stayed calm when others lost control." That moment changed everything. Ethan was given more responsibility, not because he was the smartest, but because he was stable. He learned the final lesson. Emotional control does not remove problems. It gives you power over them. That night, Ethan walked home slowly. He knew the old Ethan would not survive this test. But the new Ethan did not just survive. He grew. Only one part remained. Months passed. Ethan's life did not become perfect. Problems still appeared. People still tested his patience. But something inside him was different. He no longer reacted to every word. He no longer fought every battle. He chose his responses. When someone criticized him, he listened calmly. When someone tried to provoke him, he stayed silent. When emotions rose, he observed them instead of obeying them. People started to notice. They trusted him. They respected him. Some even feared his calmness. Because calm people are unpredictable. One evening, Ethan remembered his old self. The angry reactions, the wasted energy, the regret. He smiled. He finally understood the truth. Power is not in shouting. Power is not in winning arguments. Power is in control. Emotional control gave him clarity. Silence gave him strength. Awareness gave him freedom. Ethan became powerful, not because he changed the world, but because he mastered himself. And that is the highest form of strength. The end.